you are a senior advisor to the National Popular Vote Foundation. What's it called?
Yeah, National Popular Vote Initiative.
Okay. And you are a big believer that we need to do presidential politics a little bit differently. Right. And I think that the knee-jerk opinion of almost everyone right of center is that you're messing with the Constitution. Don't do it. It's both a violation of what the founders intended, but also, practically speaking, fewer of my guys are going to win if we do this.
No, you're absolutely right. And the problem is it's not necessarily accurate. So Article 2, Section 1 of the Constitution says the state legislature shall determine how electors are chosen. And that's basically the only reference to the Electoral College in the founding document. And if you go back and take a look at what the founders intended, I mean, they debated 21 different proposals over 31 days, and they could not agree on how a president ought to be elected. And interestingly enough, just a side note, is the one vote that came the closest was the national popular vote, which lost by one vote at the Constitutional Convention. And but still, they couldn't agree. And so they had just finished the long debate with regards to how the Senate and the House ought to be made up. And so they came up with this concept of an electoral college. And they said, why don't we use the same numbers that come out of the congressional makeup, have every state represented by 2 senators, have every state's population represented by a number of electors that come out based on the House of Representatives vote. And then we'll create a kind of an electoral college based on the current College of Cardinals, the way the Pope is elected. And they will get together and decide who the president ought to be. And so that was basically the grand compromise they came with regards to the presidential election. But they left it up to the states to determine how those electors would be elected. So early on, it used to be the governor's appointees. At some stage, the legislative appointment. Then there was a legislative appointees, and then people started running for electoral college districts. So each state basically did it their own way, coming in and going out of the Civil War. And then when the North and the South really wanted reliable electors to come out of the Civil War and the negotiations that were going to take place with regards to what America was going to look like, they kind of left it there. And it worked, and nobody thought about it again. And literally for the last 150-some years, we've had a winner-take-all rule in all but 2 states, where Nebraska and Maine use basically the congressional district plan. And so what's happened is we've evolved where when the founders put this together, we didn't have any political parties. In fact, one of the things they feared most were factions, right, where little groups would get together and collude with regards to who ought to be the magistrate, as they called him back then, the chief magistrate. There was no word the president when they were putting it together. And the concept was that states would act in their selfish best interest to determine who the president was. And when you take a look at it, the founders really gave the state legislature 3 explicit rights in the Constitution. One was reapportionment to affect the House. One was to elect the senators to obviously affect the Senate and have influence over the Senate. And the third was to determine how electors were chosen to figure out how to elect the president.